At the end of the day, we all just want one thing: to fly around in a spandex bodysuit that showcases our abs and disguises our lack of personality. But since base jumping is expensive and takes off faster than this channel, we need to lower our standards to the next best thing: writing superhero characters. The problem is that there's no short supply of superhero characters coming out of Hollywood these days, and, just like cake and unsolicited butt slaps from your uncle, too much of a good thing goes stale real quick. It's at times like these when the world needs a hero, someone that could break up the monotony of an alien man fighting another existential threat to the planet. Someone like. But why? Why tell a story about a flawed, flailing teen struggling to balance life with responsibility? Why not crank out another one of our traditional superheroes like Clark Kent, the epitome of hope, sacrifice, and flawless hair? To answer those questions, today we're going to look at what makes Mark Grayson a superior character to our traditional Superman archetype, looking at what drives either character, how personal conflict affects their relatability to the audience, and who each character fundamentally is, which alters their relationship to their respective story worlds. Finally, we'll go over key considerations for you to implement in your own writing, regardless as to whether your story's main character is super or just some loser in a wingsuit. So let's pop the top off this tall bottle of differences with point number 1: character drive. For the sake of PETA, let's start by beating a dead horse. Character is why we care, so it stands to reason the most important part of your story is what your main character cares about. Is it family? Is it freedom? Is it fighting the urge to use X-ray vision when Lois Lane enters the room? Because what a character wants tells us everything we need to know about them. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration. It tells us half of what we need to know about them. When we look at Superman, he has a great list of wants. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to carry the world on his back and make life easier for everyone. He wants pure intangibles, ideals rather than materials. He's the 12-year-old version of you that just wanted to take Carly to the movies because she was such a swell girl, and you hadn't become such a calloused piece of shit yet. Superman sees the world as it could be, and here is where we meet our first hurdle as writers. Don't get me wrong, intangible goals are great because they are unobtainable and can get warped into some dark stuff. Aaron's limitless freedom in Attack on Titan turns into Operation Pancake, and human history is pretty much just a chain of murderous dictators striving for peace. But the struggle with Superman's character is that, well, there really is no struggle. Until recently, Superman could always do the right thing. He might be challenged physically, but he was never put into a lose-lose situation. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's go back to my senior year college party when my soon-to-be ex-girlfriend dared me to take off my Green Man suit and walk through the party guests in nothing but my boxers. I knew if I didn't take her up on the dare, she'd think I was a coward, but I also knew that I had Popeyes earlier that day and my boxers were definitely stained. Whatever I chose to do was not going to end well, but I had to make a choice between the lesser of two evils. Superman never has to make choices like this. He wears his underwear on the outside and doesn't eat Popeyes. On the other hand, Mark Grayson is plagued by decisions where there is no great outcome, and even when he attempts to pursue the greater of two goods, or make the right choice in the decision between good versus evil, he fails. That's something that we almost never see in storytelling. We as audience members are protected from the idea that sometimes there is no good choice, sometimes heroes fail, sometimes evil is right for the wrong reasons, and while Superman has dipped his toes into this murky water of character complexity when mistaking Zod for a Snapple, there was never a time where we questioned Clark's integrity. In your storytelling, you don't need to have a morally gray character. You can have a great character like Superman whose moral compass is nailed to the north, but you have to test that compass and be willing to break that compass, pulling out whatever tricks and underhanded deception necessary to break the unbreakable. And that brings us to point number 2. Scare your audience with change. No, I don't mean that you should threaten your audience with a roll of quarters tied in a tube sock. I mean that your audience should feel like your hero has the capacity for change, but the direction is uncertain. Give your hero 2 possible futures. Mark Grayson is just like any boy with a superhero father. He admires and emulates him.
It's all I ever wanted for as long as I can remember.
Now, that sounds awesome. Our hero wants to be heroic, right? See, this is one of the subtleties of storytelling that's absolutely hair-raising when you pull it off properly. Mark wants to be like his father, which raises the question: Does he want to be the Superman he thinks his father is, or does he want to be just like his father, no matter how evil that man may be? We give Mark two possible futures. Obviously, this gives Mark a choice, which is mucho importante point number one. A hero can't really be great if he doesn't have the choice. I'm not a good dad for not abandoning my kid on the highway. I don't abandon my kids on the highway because I'd go to jail. It has nothing to do with my integrity and everything to do with obligation and consequence. That then leads to mucho importante point number two, which is that Mark is not driven by a prophecy. He is not the chosen one. He's not a god amongst men or even an outstanding hero amongst other heroes. He's just a boy with enough power to be great, either greatly evil if he chooses to pursue his father's legacy, or greatly dead if he chooses to stand in the way and protect his earthly legacy. Superman doesn't have this conflict or this choice. He is a god amongst men with no alliance or legacy to anything beyond the life he's always known on Earth. Even when Clark learns he's an alien, even when he's told by Space Castro that he belongs to a race of genetic elites, Clark has no roots in that world. Clark's home is Earth, and his legacy, in his mind, is that of humanity. It's like when you, for your 21st birthday, did that 23andMe and got your test scores back saying that you had an extra chromosome. You've already made it this far in life despite people calling you stupid, so why would you start caring now just because it's scientifically proven? The same way you can't change your chromosomes, Superman can't change where his loyalties lie. It doesn't matter if Zod is more like him than his adoptive parents. It doesn't matter if Krypton 2.0 has a hotter Lois Lane. Superman has Stockholm Syndrome, and he never has the opportunity to think twice about sacrificing one half of who he is for the other half. He threw out his alienness years ago, and in Clark's mind, he's just a really awesome human. He struggles with the choice to do what is most right, but he never struggles to be great. It's in having to struggle between the right choice and the great choice that makes Mark's character far more complex and relatable for our audience. Mark has to reject the father that he's always loved to protect the planet he's always called home. Superman, at most, has to reject a normal life with Lois to protect everyone else that looks up to him. And while that is admittedly a conflict of want and need, it's not like I wake up every day, put on my slippers, look over at my girlfriend and think, I'd like to sleep in, but it's time to go be a god and save the world. Instead, I think, wow, she hasn't left me yet. That's cool. Time to make a YouTube video and hope this one goes viral. In your own stories, you need to give your hero a selfish goal to strive for and a selfless lesson to learn. Both should be equally desirable. Save a cruise ship or spend the night with your first girlfriend. Fight an alien or offer your mom emotional support. Save the world or be everything your dad ever wanted you to be. At first glance, the attainment of one goal should negate the other. Now, yes, in most stories, a hero's willingness to do the right thing is what gets him what they always wanted anyway. But that's not the goal, and it's not a guarantee either. A hero must be willing to sacrifice themselves for a greater good or lesser evil, something that is much easier to do for Mark than it is for Clark Kent. Mark's personal struggles are far more human than Superman's. Clark's struggles aren't like most people's struggles. While he's off fighting space octopus, I'm struggling to make Folgers, and it gives the audience a sense that Superman really isn't struggling that much at all. Which brings us to point number 3. Struggling to struggle. Mark Grayson is essentially Spider-Man's social life mixed with diluted Superman juice. He's got girl problems, friend problems, single mom problems, college problems, and a father figure that gives the performance of a lifetime before going on a permanent sabbatical. Mark struggles with things that we can all relate to while also figuring out how to protect his girlfriend from a CrossFit chick, reminding nerds who's in charge, and prove to the government that he can't grow a mustache. Now, when we look at Superman, we do have parts of this. Lois Lane has a death wish and always finds her way into the life-threatening situations. Superman's adoptive parents are mortal and easy targets once the bad guy figures out that the jacked reporter popping out of his button-up is Superman. Clark has to constantly decide to defend the people who reject him because it's the right thing to do, or quit and become a Giga Chad. But honestly, none of us ever worry about that happening because Clark, how do I say this, knows who he is. He doesn't have repressed childhood trauma from being bullied or accidentally punching his bully into orbit. God, I'd love to see that in an origin story. He doesn't struggle to rationalize why his father was an abusive alcoholic or discover his powers when lasering off his father's face. Clark just knows that he's the good guy, and no matter how much he doesn't like it, there's never a fear that Superman will falter or become Dan Bilzerian. He'll always do the right thing, even when struggling to be the pillar of hope for the world. And I mean, why should he really struggle? He's immortal. He can become Giga Chad whenever he wants and still have plenty of time. It's the moral equivalent of me saying, I'll eat a pan of fudge tomorrow, but today, I'll stick to my diet. We see a similar dynamic play out in movies like Unbreakable or The Passion, where our main character is pretty much tortured for 2 hours and they win by never giving up. Superman is nearly indestructible, which pretty much necessitates that his struggle be internal. But we lose so much of that internal struggle too, because Superman is just a golden boy fighting off giants. Since Superman can't physically die, and since he is morally incorruptible, then what am I even watching for? This is like watching a politician on trial for tax evasion and human trafficking. We know they're going to get away with it and nothing will change, so why waste our time watching? Conversely, Mark is the captain, co pilot, and passenger upon the USS Struggle Bus, realizing that he is not as strong as his father, not as evil as his father, not always the better man he wants to be, and tirelessly failing at being both a human and a hero. Dude crushed the relatability button. But not only does this make Mark relatable, it makes it all the more inspiring and exciting when he gets back up. Your audience doesn't want to watch a hero win.
One thing they love more than a hero
Is to see a hero fail, fall, die trying.
Well, kinda. We want to see them fail, try again, succeed, and repeat this cycle against bigger and bigger challenges that test them because, for your audience, for all of us, the closest that we'll ever be to Superman is someone that is willing to fail, stand up, and try again, even when there is still a risk of failure. A risk that we might be wrong. A risk that we might never achieve the big goal, but at least we could die a hero knowing we gave it everything we had. Mark is a great character because he has so much more to lose than Superman. He has so many more ways to fail, and the audience can relate to that. In your own writing, the thing to remember is that the best heroes are not the ones that can't lose. They're the heroes that more than likely should lose, but they try anyway. And that's a big takeaway for your own storytelling. It's hard. It's frustrating. A lot of days it feels like you're lost, and in the meantime, people either think it's funny that you're trying to write a story, or they remind you that you'll never be great at it. But guess what? They're only right if you quit, and that decision to quit or keep going is something we see in Mark's character in every episode of Invincible. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys who have actually grabbed a copy of my book on Amazon. It means a lot to me. Until next time, go write the best story possible. The end.